Inner space, the boundless frontier. These are the voyages of the Sensational Six. Their ongoing mission? To explore infinite levels of consciousness, to seek out truth, to apply principle, to boldly go where no minister has gone before.
Initiating launch sequence.
Okay. Good morning. Am I ready to be on? Yes? Okay. We just roll with life. This is just an example. When life delivers something unexpected, you say, all right, here we go. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Sensational Six. My name is Reverend Dale Olansky. And if this is your first time joining us today, these people who are my brothers and sisters who joined me today, we all went to ministerial school together, and we finished our program, graduated, and have been installed as staff ministers at Center for Spiritual Living Palm Desert. So we have the opportunity every week to gather together and to talk about whatever topic we choose. And it's a delight for us to be here together because we love each other, and it's so fun to be able to banter about and show our different points of view of different subjects. And we're grateful to have you with us today, and we would love for you to interact with us, ask questions, be a part of the conversation. We love to have your insights and your questions. It just makes it a bigger conversation, and we all learn from each other. So what we always do before we start any event is pray. So I invite you to close your eyes if that's comfortable for you and just join me in this awareness, just allowing ourselves to be where we are and to open our hearts and our minds to the conversation, the ideas that are coming forward. So blessed to come together in spiritual community. I am just thrilled to see the divine coming forth from all of us, to see these wonderful ideas, the questions, the love, the light, the laughter, the awareness, the expansion of consciousness that is already unfolding for all of us to come together in oneness, in unity, to be able to experience life in a deeper way, a more profound way, a way where that infinite wisdom, the knower within, can reveal itself perfectly so we can be guided rightly through life. So I just say, let's have fun as I open up this space for all of us to play in, to delight in the wisdom, to delight in the spirituality that is ours to grow into and be in a bigger way so that life can be beautiful, joyful, and flowing in the divine nature of spirit that we all are. And so knowing that all is unfolding with grace and ease, I'm grateful to be here and to see everything come alive for all of us. And so knowing this is true, I let go, I let it be, as we say together, and so it is. Well, good morning again. So as is customary, we always start with a question so you get to know us a little bit better. And today's question was given to us by Reverend Lori, who also will be doing the topic of the day, and she'll be going into that in a little bit. Our question today is, what is the greatest advice you've ever received from your intuition? And that was really easy for me because the greatest advice I ever got from my intuition is to move to Palm Desert. And I know you're going to find this crazy, but I was living in Santa Barbara, California, when I got that hit. And people say, God, you're so crazy. Why did you leave such a beautiful place? And the reason why I left such a beautiful place is that I wasn't happy anymore living there, and I needed new life. I needed to have a new thing to do. And so I came to visit a friend of mine who lived in Palm Desert, just to visit. And I opened up my car door, and as soon as my leg came out and my body came out, I got that divine hit that said, you need to move here. And within 9 months I did, and my life just exploded. I found myself, I found who I was, I found Center for Spiritual Living Palm Desert, and my life has just been extraordinary ever since. So good to listen to that still small voice. And now I'm going to pass it off to Reverend William.
Well, good morning, and thank you so much. For me, my greatest intuition, listening to myself, was many moons ago, back in like 2002. It was actually how I got my business started of doing what I do now with sandblasting and my artwork and that sort of stuff. And we were at some sort of home improvement show at the convention center in Palm Springs. And they were just various stuff people were showing things, but this one gentleman had this system of doing sandblasting and engraving and stuff. And I just was so attracted to that. I just heard this little sound off in the distance, and like a bloodhound, I'm searching through and going through and finding this, and this gentleman's just sitting back to this older gentleman, and we got to talking and got to playing around with what he had there for demonstration purposes, and I just got into it, and I said yes. I mean, it wasn't it was a pretty sizable investment, but I tell you what, saying yes has changed my life. Now I've got to turn this back over to Gail, or Reverend Gail.
Thank you, Reverend William. It's just great to hear how Spirit has moved both you and Dale. So I can think of some absolutely great guidance that my intuition has provided. But I think today I'm going to speak more broadly. The most significant intelligence that I've gleaned is truly what I hear and I feel and I sense regularly when I'm having an experience that wants to nudge me towards worry or fear or concern. It's that sense that this too will pass, that everything is expressing just as it needs to, as something even better is emerging. And that's really what I heard from Reverend Dale and Reverend William too. The background of that experience is actually what we're going to talk about today, our inner space. And I'm really, really grateful for it. Reverend Brad, how about you?
Awesome summation, Reverend Gail. Yeah, I love our thinking in the context of, for me, I was thinking, what is intuition? And you could browse through one of our past shows. I know it's titled Intuition, and perfect segue into Lori's talk, but today of the inner space. Because like Reverend Gail, I feel I use it on a regular basis, and it only shows up on a regular basis when I can go within and settle with the infinite within me on a regular basis. And then it just pops up little things of, oh, I could do this. And I just, casually go over and do that in the house, outside the house. A significant one for me was years ago, I was in Practitioner 1 class. And maybe I told this story months ago. And it was a Practitioner 1 and Practitioner 2. And that's a 9-month course. So there were a couple of us that were in Practitioner 1 and about 6 of us of the students that were in Practitioner 2. And the lead teacher on that class, I think, was talking like Practitioner 7. And it was so over my head. And I remember just being in the class and struggling with it and figuring it out. And I had like a handful of hours left of this 9-month course. And I said, I'm not supposed to be here at this time. I'm not embodying it. I don't just want to friggin' pass the test. I want to have the context and the content of this within me. And I stopped. And so my teacher wasn't really thrilled. I remember my staff at the office I was managing thought I was on some kind of high, because when I listened to it and then acted on it, my life just opened up. And of course, the next year then I took Practitioner 1 again and took it. But that's been a significant lesson for me of what am I supposed to do right now? And don't look at the money investment or the time investment. What am I supposed to do right now? So we're moving on to Reverend Cheryl. But Cheryl, was it the agenda that said you're going to be next? Or was it your intuition that you knew I was going to call on you next?
Good one, Brad. That's a good one. Yeah, the agenda gave it away, though. So, with my intuition, I feel like it works all the time, but it has to scream at me at times, because I know what I'm doing. I'm not listening to myself. And I think that that's part of our social structure. How many times you said, oh, you're just being tough on this person, when you say, something, that little weird thing that you feel sometimes where you just say, something is not quite in place. Something is not gelling here. And you can't quite put your finger on it. But I tend to not listen to it. So I end up in all kinds of situations I should not be in if I just listen to myself. And for example, when I got married the last time, this guy asked me 3 times to marry him. And I kept saying, are you out of your mind? No, I don't want to get married. No, I don't want to get married. No, I don't want to get married. And finally, it was just kind of like through, well, he's a nice guy, all the wrong reasons to marry someone. But my intuition was screaming at me, no, don't do this, don't do this. And, 9 months later, after I married this person, I figured out that I made the biggest mistake of my life. And instead of just saying, okay, you made a mistake, back up, rewind, I just decided I could make it work for 21 years. Wrong. Anyway, but sometimes, that's the whole thing, is what we're talking about here, is that our intuition is that spirit, that soul space within us, that inner space, as Lori's called it, and always here to protect us, always here to be that essence of who we are. And sometimes when we let the human side of us say, oh, I know better than this, I can figure this out by myself. But so I would just invite you to please think about listening to your intuition. Mine's great, but I just don't listen to it sometimes. And so open up your heart, open up your head, and just listen. So, all right, now I'm going to turn it over to Reverend Lori to wrap it up.
Well, listening to your intuition is definitely a journey, and it was certainly my journey. And I can point to every major turn I've taken in my life, and it's always been nudged by intuition. And many years ago, like Cheryl, I wasn't really listening. And when I let go and I started going, okay, I get it now. I'm going to listen, and I'm not going to argue, and I'm not going to, let that ego part of myself, which is always against whatever my intuition is saying, because my intuition's usually pointing to living a bigger life. It's leading me in a direction of greater spaciousness. And ego doesn't necessarily like that. Monkey mind's going, no, we're comfortable. We're good where we are. And goes into a little bit of a panic mode. And it took me a long time to get to the point where I say, yes, all right, I hear you, and we're just going to do this. And certainly going into ministry was one of those for me. It was an intuition I got years ago, and I did kind of go, no. No. And then, of course, eventually I went, all right, fine. And here I am. And it obviously was a wonderful decision. I love being part of this show, and I love serving, and I love being a minister. And I can say every good thing that's happened in my life has been a nudge from my intuition. And that's part of our topic today, is how do we enter into that inner spaciousness? The word spaciousness is I think my favorite word in the whole English language. Even saying it, I like, spaciousness. I want that gap between my thoughts and my reactions, between my thoughts and who I am, because I am not my thoughts. I am the thinker of my thoughts. And did you know that we are 99.9999% empty space? I find that fascinating. And when Amit Goswami, I think I'm saying that right, who's a retired professor of physics, and he's written a whole host of books, one of which I'm reading right now, which is the Everything Answer book. It's really wonderful. I can't recommend it enough. And he said when people ask him if everything's not matter, which is what our logical minds would say it is, what is it? And he said, it's consciousness. Everything is made of consciousness. Everything is possibility before we experience it. And that is quantum science. Oh my goodness. And I can go back 20 years ago reading Deepak Chopra. Deepak Chopra said everything is infinite possibility. Everything is infinite potential, that we're always swimming in the sea of receptivity, as Ernest Holmes called it. And I love that. Whenever I get a little tight and I begin to close my spaciousness down, and I get caught up in the matter of life, the particles of life, I take a deep breath and I think of Ernest Holmes, throwing ourselves into the sea of infinite receptivity. And I love to swim. So that's just a great metaphor for me, that floating in that infinite sea of receptivity and what wants to happen through me. What is my intuition saying right now? And from that place, I can hear it. So one of the ways I do that is to take a breath. It's such a simple thing, and we talk about it a lot. But just simply in our breath is where that spaciousness is, because you can only breathe in the present moment. You can't breathe in the future, and you can't breathe in the past. When you're breathing, you are in this moment. And I just invite everybody in this moment to take a breath and release. And what do you notice? Just in that one breath, did you notice that your energy shifted? I did. I did. And maybe it's through practice, but that's all it takes is that little reminder, to come from the space of all possibility, to come from the ground of my being, who I am, from my true nature, which exists in that spaciousness. And really, for me, it's a sense of all is well, no matter what's going on in my life. All is well is a huge deal for me. I sign all my dial and ideas off, all is well in all ways, always, just as a reminder that it's the truth. And we all talked about our intuition leading us forward. And that was that sense of, here's some opportunity, here's some possibility, here's some potentiality, and you might want to engage it. It's here for you. And you can choose to say no. Usually it comes back around. Or as Cheryl said, sometimes we regret it when we don't listen to it. And so it's taking that breath, having that space, especially when things are going a little, as my elderly friend used to say, cattywampus. When everything, I love that word, cattywampus. When everything goes cattywampus, to be able to go, I am not that. I am not, that is in effect. That is something that is happening, but it is not who I am. So I came up with all these wonderful quotes, and I really won't have time unless I talk through the whole thing to share them all. But I do want to share a couple of them. This one's from Eckhart Tolle. He says, underneath the world of sense perceptions and the world of mind activity, there is a vastness of being. There is vast spaciousness. There is vast stillness. And there's a little ripple of activity on the surface, which isn't separate, just like the ripples are not separate on the ocean. I love that. And doesn't that speak to who we are? That we are not just a drop in the ocean, but we are the entire ocean and a drop. Remembering that, just even saying that to myself, again, my body relaxes and I begin to experience my energy as spaciousness. I'm engaged in that empty space of possibility. And I think of all the tools that I've learned in the last 20 years of being in Science Mind. That is the one that I most consistently apply and practice. And for me, it's been the most transformative of everything that I've done, that space of observation, of engaging my true nature in the midst of whatever's happening. And it takes practice. You know, sometimes I think it's good to just start off with little baby steps where you're practicing with maybe things are going pretty well and you're just going a little bit deeper. And the more you practice that, there will come a day where everything goes around you and you'll take a breath and you'll just observe it and you won't get caught up in it and you'll breathe your way through it and you will respond from a place of actual truth, of knowing, of understanding who you really are. And that is a huge day when that happens. That is a big deal. And for me, there's nothing that compares to that. And it's simply, you know, as we say all the time here on our show, remembering who you are. That is really the key to engaging spaciousness. It's just simply remembering who you are and that you are bigger than anything that shows up in your life. So with that, I'm going to invite everybody else to chime in.
I'll chime. I love this topic. I love the idea of inner space. And over the summer, it was a 30-day mindfulness challenge through Adyashanti. And he talks a lot about getting into that spaciousness of being. And it really helped me. And I've been meditating for such a long time, but it helped me with giving me this visual to move my focus from being in the container of of this body, of this mind, to move out of that into the infinite. And it gave me such a lovely place to just say, okay, I'm moving out of this, to the expansiveness. And I love how you described that, Lori. It was so, I mean, it just resonated so big with me, that the infinite possibilities that are there, they're invisible. Yeah, they're formless, but they are there. And our consciousness brings them forth into the physical realm as we teach. So I love that. And, you know, for people who inner space might be a new idea, something you haven't really played in yet, it's just something to get used to. And the more you get used to it and feel the power of it, the easier it is to move into that formless space and to give it a chance. Because I know sometimes it might feel scary if it's new to you, but it's like cold water. Once you get into the cold water, your body gets really used to it, and it's actually very enjoyable. So I always encourage people to try out the inner space, because when you get really comfortable and it becomes a place you love to go, that's where the magic happens. That's where you can really drench yourself in the power that is there for you to live into, the peace, the oneness, all that good stuff we teach is found in that inner space. So who would like to go next? It looks like Reverend Gail.
Thank you, Reverend Dale. So inner space, and then inner space consciousness. I just loved this talk title today. And, you know, as Lori said, that word spaciousness just means so much. So I think of inner space consciousness as just that, my inner space, your inner space. And think about the meaning of these two words. Inner means within, and space, that which is so vast that it can only be called boundless, limitless, endless. And Eckhart Tolle actually has a definition for inner space consciousness that I just love. And this is what he says: inner space consciousness and who you are in your essence are one and the same. I'm going to repeat that. Inner space consciousness and who you are in your essence are one and the same. And what does he mean by that? Well, let me give you an example. I believe he means that when you experience beauty, or you feel that deep sense of loving kindness for another, or when you experience a touch, a sound, or a sight that delights you, you sense this inner spaciousness, as Lori said, this inner space consciousness that is the genesis of your experience. So although it might be semantics, I kind of think of the conscious mind as that aspect of us that's the source of our short-term memory, our decision-making capabilities, our critical thinking, and also our willpower, in large part kind of skill-based activities. And our unconscious mind, scientists would say, that it is a powerhouse of activity, from controlling our autonomic nervous system, our breathing, our heartbeat, to the source of our habits, our life patterns, our creativity, and even our personality. So although it might just be semantics, or maybe it's our nature to label and compartmentalize to understand our world, I really experience the richness of my inner space consciousness differently. I experience this inner space as my true essence. Essence really being my intrinsic nature or quality that is my true character. And I think of my conscious and my unconscious as more conditioned, based upon what I'm experiencing or what I have experienced. And I think of my blessed inner space consciousness as that which is unconditioned, my essential center. It's that which always holds true. So who else wants to jump in on this amazing topic?
Reverend Gail, we have a comment and a question right below you, and didn't know if that might be in your bailiwick there. Do you like me to read it?
I'm just finding it. Just
Oh, it's on the screen. It says, it's from Gilmore. It says, grief is a terrible energy of heartbreak that robs you of those moments of spaciousness. Is there a simple or immediate exercise to re-engage from loss back into the spacious stability again?
Wow, that's an amazing question. And thank you so much for sharing it. And you're absolutely right. Grief takes a tremendous amount of energy. And what takes even as much energy is the expression of grief, which is mourning. So grief is really the feelings that we have when we go through a significant loss to us, any loss to us. But then mourning is that ability to express that grief. And it's in the mourning process that we actually heal. So when you say, is there a simple or immediate exercise? What I would say is that there's nothing ever simple or immediate around the expression of grief. However, the most effective way, and I think that's what you're getting to kind of return to that space of spaciousness around that loss you're experiencing, is to find someone that you can candidly and honestly express your feelings of grief to, so that you can mourn that loss. You can move through that experience. And if you don't have someone that is companioning you through that grief process, consider finding them. Or there are beautiful rituals that you can set up for yourself. Rituals, of course, being meaningful only to the person that engages in them. Let me give you an example. I had an individual that I was working with that was going through a significant loss. And they had two young children, and they felt like they had to be really, really strong for these young children. So they never expressed their grief, which is mourning, around their young children. But what we worked in is we found this beautiful space inside her home. And she would go there every day after the children went to school or after they went to bed. And she would light a beautiful candle. A candle was a very important symbol to her. And she would cry and she would speak aloud her loss and her grief until she felt that spaciousness return. Because it's all about mourning, releasing those experiences of loss. And when she did, she would then blow out the candle, and that represented to her that she had completed that process for the day, that she had fully released those feelings. And those rituals can be very individual to you. If that is something that would help you, please reach out to any of us, and we can help you craft something that might work for you. I also highly recommend having that companion or companions that can be there for you as you express your grief, because as you mourn, that's when you feel the spaciousness returning into your heart and your soul. Thanks for that question.
I guess I'm next. I'm not sure. It kind of got out of line there. That was beautiful, Gail. And one of the things that I've heard from people also when they're speaking of grief is that people will say to you, oh, it's okay. Just, don't cry. Just, it's all going to be fine. Just, it's no big deal and all this other stuff. But the reality is that you have to walk through every single emotion around that. And it's wish there was a quick fix, wish there was a pill we could take and it would be alleviated or gone, but it's not. It's just something you just have to keep walking through. And that's the whole thing about grief is I've said it before, but I just love this phrase. It's like, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I don't have to stop and build a condo there. And so that's the thing about grief. You have to keep moving and working and walking and moving your feet, taking action, and not just sitting there and becoming stagnant in that feeling. But then going back to intuition, sorry, that was what I was going to speak about, but I love what Gail is the one that taught me everything I know about dealing with grief. I mean, she's phenomenal as far as that's concerned. But one of the things that people talk to me about is sometimes, well, my intuition will say, you know, it's kind of a negative feeling. It's like I'm getting a negative vibe off of something that's happening around me. Well, and, you know, with our teaching, it's always to remain in the positive and always to try and see the beauty of every spiritual being, of everyone you meet and everything. But sometimes you just get that vibe. And to me, that vibe is my intuition. But sometimes the thing is that we not only are supposed to stay in the positive, but we also have spiritual discernment, which means we get to choose who we let into our lives. We get to choose what experiences we're going to follow that path or we're not. So it's that discernment that makes the difference. And so that's why, even though a lot of us in society, and women especially, have been taught since we were young, oh, you're just having a weird feeling, because we really are in tune. Women tend to be more in tune with their intuition. I don't know why. Maybe it's hormones, who knows? But still, it's just one of those things that when you're getting that vibe, no matter what it is, take a step back and look at it. Really look at it and say, why am I getting this feeling? And know that it's you that's having the feeling. It's not necessarily the situation, but understand what you're feeling and what your body and what your soul, which is one thing, is saying to you. There's no separation, not between that inner space and the outer space. It's just like they say, a jug becomes useful with the empty space with it inside it. The outer space does nothing for us, but the jug is only useful with the inner space. And so if you just think of it that way, it's the outer space is necessary to form the inner space for a place for it to be. Anyway, thanks for letting me share. And I guess William's up next.
That's absolutely right. Wonderful insights from everyone. And I love Reverend Lori, always talking about water. So I'm going to continue that theme and talking about emotions and insights. It's like when you're at the ocean and you're right on the surface and it's all that turmoil and throwing you about, and that's kind of fun and exciting. But have you noticed that when you just go a couple of feet below the surface, all that turmoil disappears and you just move easily and effortlessly with the ebb and flow? Well, that's your spiritual consciousness. And Gilmore is asking, is there a simple or immediate exercise to re-engage? And I would just offer this. When we talk about going within and closing your eyes and calming yourself down, just picture yourself in the ocean and just allowing yourself to be submerged and supported 100% by the ocean, which represents spirit itself. And when you can come to that awareness and that consciousness of that support, you'll notice that your mind calms down, the situation calms down. It doesn't negate the effect or the feelings, but it allows you to have support and a point of reference to then allow the insight, that inner voice, to come within you and to allow you and guide you to the next step in that process, which Reverend Gail refers to and talks about. So Gilmore, that's what I would recommend for you. So as these feelings are popping up, just close your eyes and imagine yourself at the beach, at the ocean, and allowing yourself to just go beneath the waves, that surface, representing the inner self, the spiritual self of your being, and allow that to just support you, and just allow those memories and those thoughts just to be thoughts of gratitude of the experiences that you've had. And I think that will definitely help you to go through that process. But it is, again, what Reverend Lori is talking about is that inner voice, that intuition, and that should help you out. I believe Brad is going to go next.
Okay, I guess I could go next. Uh, I want to ask our listeners, you can see everyone's wonderful faces here of your staff ministers at your spiritual community. So when you're looking at all these amazing faces, what insights have you gained to help you do that? Or to have a richer experience of accessing your intuition or accessing that inner space? A lot of what was shared, I love, either directly or indirectly refers to our spiritual practice. And even if it was never specifically said sometimes, it's still pausing, breathing, taking that time. And for years, I've taught people the only way to do meditation wrong is to not do it. So if you can just sit and close your eyes, everything after that is perfect. And we know that God is everywhere, and consciousness is everywhere. So the essence of God is in my fingers, and that's can also be like the physicalness of life. But when we have to sit without moving and closing our eyes, the only thing left are the thoughts of God. And that's a topic came from Deepak Chopra, who was referred to earlier in this conversation, where he was the one that taught me about how much empty space there was, that my fingers look like they're touching, but there's still empty space between my fingers touching. And to get to that deeper intuition level is to be in the gap, whether it's in our mind or physically. It's just pausing and breathing. So, with our county now, we can't sit inside restaurants and all the other activities going on in life. And we're either joy-filled or concerned about an election coming up. The place to most easily access the infinite is listening to these recordings every single week and then going back and listening to them. But it's also pausing and breathing. It's been referred to different tasks to do. There are a number of small groups at our community and your community that you can participate with virtually, from grief and caregivers and men's group coming up and another loving circle and meditation time and other opportunities for you just to step into a place to, or to be seen and heard with whatever is on your heart and mind. So we still got a few more minutes. What other awesome strategies? Reverend Gail, are you going to share some?
I was just going to mention the comments really quick. We got William. People love your ocean analogy where you're under the water and everything. It was brilliant, they said. And mainly we just have comments. We just had the one question from Rizzo, but we just want to thank everybody that shows up every week and always leaves comments or asks questions and stuff. It just makes it so much more exciting for us when you do. So I'm going to turn it over now. I guess it's going to Dale. Reverend Dale?
Yes, thank you, Reverend Cheryl.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So some people out there might be wondering, well, how do I deepen my intuition? How do I expand on this? And I thought, we've been teaching a lot at our center about the power of intention. Thank you, Reverend Gail, for bringing it to our center. And if you just set your intention, just to say, you know what, I'm setting the intention that I'm going to grow my ability to listen to that still small voice, or I'm going to amplify my intuition, that you're sending a signal to the universe and your intuition will develop. Setting intention is very, very powerful. What I love about it is I don't need to figure out how it's going to work itself out. I just set the intention and the universe delivers it. So that's one step that you can do. Another thing that I find really cool is being together with people who also are into their intuition, and we come together maybe in spiritual community or friends. When you've got that reinforcement that your intuition is something that is a source of wisdom for you, when you have other people that are chiming in with you on that, that too grows it. Because I know a lot of people, myself included, when I came into this teaching, my friends weren't into intuition that much. And so I didn't have that reinforcement. But when I came into spiritual community and people thought the way that I did and they were into intuition, it gave me permission to really step into it in a bigger way, because I was supported by others who also see the value and use their intuition to help them with their life. So I just want to mention those two tools. I think Reverend Lori's up next. You're muted, Reverend Lori.
I'm coming. I got it. Pull the Cheryl. I just wanted to remind everybody of something we said a couple weeks ago, was about spiritual maturity is holding two contradictory things in mind at the same time. And so I think that really goes to grief in a lot of ways. At least it did for me, for my personal journey with grief. It was one of the things that I guess I just did intuitively, because I hadn't really heard that idea before then. But I remember when I heard that my mom was passing and that she wasn't likely going to make it, and I was really far away and we were close, and it was, my reaction to that was I was pretty devastated and upset naturally. But at the same time, there was that something bigger that was happening simultaneously. There was a calm and a sense of all is well. And even though it was fainter than my upset in the moment, it was still there. And I recognized it, and I was willing to lean into it and ask what it was. And what it was this simple question: what is the truth? And I'm not even talking about spiritual truth, but on the ground truth, right? And like for my mother in that moment, the truth in physical reality was she was leaving the plane exactly how she wanted. She had always said, please God, just let me go like that. Now, she was in a coma, but I mean, she was gone. And so she had demonstrated exactly what she had chosen. And there were a lot of other little truths. I had done the best I could. I had the best relationship I could with her. Our love was it was just there. It was changeless regardless. And so then that gets to the bigger truth of that we are all eternal, and that energy is always present, whether on this plane or on another plane, and engaging in that, recognizing that and kind of beginning to turn towards that and embrace it. It just balanced my grief out. And I know it's hard to do when you're in the throes of it, but it's always there. So we say a lot of times we find what we're looking for. So we can always choose to look for peace. We can always choose to look for love. And I know in this community, you can find love everywhere, everywhere. So who's next? William.
I think Gail is next, but may I just jump in with a question that we just got online? It says, how do we know if it's intuition that's talking to us or if it's a monkey mind? How do we know the difference? Anybody Gail, you want to take that one?
Oh, I would love to take that one. I feel like a monkey mind specialist. that monkey mind's kind of my bailiwick. This is very easy question to answer. Monkey mind has a certain quality about it. It's kind of a nervous Nilly. It's always looking at its job is to look at, what could possibly go wrong here. And it is an actual part of our brain, our amygdala, and it gets triggered, and it's all about survival. So it always has a quality of to it. And intuition never carries that quality. It just doesn't. It almost, to me, intuition has a shrug. Here it is. You can listen or not. And if you don't, it's okay. all is still well. So your intuition never carries the quality that monkey mind does. It's a very different. Intuition is spacious. Monkey mind is not spacious. Monkey mind is very tightly strung. So that's my answer to that. And I know that Gail's on deck, so we'll see if she has an answer as well.
So I think you did a great job, Lori, with that answer. So since we're getting close to the end of our time together, I thought I would jump in with something just a little bit different. And maybe we can expand on this as well as we kind of close out. So, you know, a lot of the questions have been around indirectly. How does this inner awareness, this inner space serve us? And I would say it has to be through the realization of it. And in New Thought teachings, we're all about healing. In our inner space consciousness, healing is the natural order of the day. For when I truly trust my divine nature, I can face any degree of emotional turmoil, pain, and disappointment. Because as I said earlier in our opening question, from this space, I know beyond knowing that this too will pass. Everything is unfolding exactly as it needs to for my next greatest expression. And that's because my inner space consciousness always holds true. And I'd like to add on to that what Lori had just said, as she described beautifully to us, her experience of loss when her mom made her transition. So yes, we know that this inner space is always going to hold true. At the same time, if we're going through a loss that's very significant to us, I think what Gilmore was describing are those waves of grief that we can go through. And for any of us here that have had a really significant loss, those waves can be absolutely overwhelming. And so remember, always remember, if you find you're having a hard time realizing your inner space consciousness, that's because you also have a mind and a body. And your body may be telling you through your feelings that you're grieving and that you need to express those feelings to be in the process of mourning, to be able to get back and access that inner space consciousness. As Lori said, it was always there, but it was a little faint. It was a little bit lighter than those other feelings that she had. So we don't want to create what we sometimes call a spiritual bypass, where we say just always go straight to your inner space consciousness. Yes, it's always there. Yes, it's always going to hold true. Sometimes we also have to recognize when we have very, very strong feelings that we need to release those. That's our body telling us we need to release those. So then we can access that inner space consciousness where, as Lori said, all is well. All is well in that space. Thank you for letting me share.
Oh, since I'm on the big screen, I guess I'm going to go next. We've all talked about and got kind of on the subject of grief, but I also want to articulate that this process of going within and the analogy that I had of being submerged in the ocean and being supported, that is also to do with all life, not just grief, but also what everyone is going through now. And especially at this time with, you know, being November coming up and what's about to happen and stuff like that. But like Dr. Joe says, live an expectant life. By going down in that ocean, that analogy that I use, and allowing spirit to support you and allowing you to calm that monkey mind, like Reverend Laura, and the monkey mind's like the ocean, the waves, the surface of the ocean, kind of turmoil and jumble and creating lots of foam, but just below that is a sense of calm and space. So, like Dr. Joe says, don't worry about the outcome, worry about the consciousness, the feelings of what you want to experience. And so allow that intuition when you're in that calmness, that state of mind of just allowing yourself to be supported. Just allow and know that spirit's there to support you. and just live that expectant life that what you want to experience is going to unfold. You don't have to tell spirit how to do it. You just need to allow spirit to know what the feelings are that you want to experience. And when you do that, that again will allow that monkey mind to calm down, because you know that you are grounded in spiritual truth, and regardless of what you see on the surface, that you are the action of spirit. And when you can know that, then everything else falls away, and there is a sense of the Gibraltar rock within you, that you are here, you are solid, you are grounded in spiritual truth, and everything that you want to experience will happen. And so I would just love to open this up. I know we're getting kind of short, but that's my closing thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I had another great comment came in on our website. It says, I love the reminder of the interplay between intuition and spiritual discernment. It's a grace practice. In other words, it's something that we practice to allow both to flow in and through our awareness. So, wow, that was from Wandering Newbie, whoever you are. Great comment. Anyone else ready to go?
Well, we have about 7 or 8 minutes left. Anybody like to share some wrap up? And Reverend Lori, maybe I could ask if we could just lock into a gallery view from here on, and people can share, and I can wrap up with a prayer when we're done with that. So who else has some amazing insight to help our audience grasp this amazing 51 minutes that we've been sharing and talking about?
I'll go. I just listen to yourself. Trust yourself. And forgive yourself for those times when you didn't trust yourself. Forgive yourself for those times that you didn't listen to the intuition and you walked into a minefield. So just know that it's always there, always ready to protect you and keep you. And you are immersed in the love of God constantly. So take advantage of it. Listen to that little voice. It's always right. Thank you.
Practice, practice, practice. That's why we call it spiritual practice. It's set a little alarm on your smartwatch if you have one, or every time you do a task that you do many times a day, let that be your reminder to engage spaciousness, to take a deep breath. I think that is so helpful to have something that you're doing throughout the day, not just in the morning, not just at night, although morning and night is a great time, but little check-ins throughout the day to become aware of that breath that can only be taken in the present moment, and to do it consistently throughout the day. And one of the ways that I really began to practice this was by asking myself a very simple question, which is, what am I noticing right now? That question, boom, immediately popped me into observation mode. And then I could notice, like, how am I experiencing my energy? What's going on in my body? Because that has a host of information. It's like every cell in our body is a little receiver, right? So there's all kinds of information there. And what am I noticing outside of me? What's the energy like in the room that I'm in? Am I present to the person I'm sitting with? I mean, just what am I noticing will lead to a whole bunch of other questions. And so that would be, I think for me, that was the thing that helped me the most, was asking that simple question. Always engages me in a sense of spaciousness and creates that gap between my thoughts and my experience and my response to it.
Powerful, powerful. So I asked Reverend Lori to put our gallery view up because I want to remind all of us, first of all, we have CSLPalmDesert.org, CSLPalmDesert.org, CSL Now, I could say it 21 times because that's supposed to be the habit, but I think you get where I'm directing us. Because every day at 10 o'clock, we have amazing programming. And other times, daily, we have other programming to support you in this, either through inspiration, education, or being seen and heard and personal support. We have amazing practitioners at our community. And you can contact the office or go online to help you connect to them. And also, I wanted all these faces up here to be here so that you can see a face with a name and say, maybe for right now, this person I can connect with. Your practitioners and ministers are not available just for prayer for a problem. If you want to talk about how can I deepen my spiritual practice, or can you talk to me about how I can look at this election and feel peaceful, or any other topic, just ask us into a conversation. We all love talking about science of mind and how we can be in principle and live in principle all of our lives. And our practitioners and ministers would love to do that with you if that is going to help support you in taking all that we've been sharing here and every Wednesday and every morning at 10 o'clock and all the other classes and services and amazing offerings that we have, for you to have it inside you so that you can feel it constantly. I love Reverend William earlier in our show said, move to the feeling that, and the other question was, how do I know intuition? Laura even put her hands up when she was answering that question. When it feels, how can not be a path that we're supposed to be on? So somebody here said something that resonated with you. So we got a couple more minutes. Anybody have a tidbit you'd like to share before we go into announcements and closing?
I have one more comment, Brad, if y'all would like for me to share it with y'all. Somebody wrote that there are two ways to live. You can live as if nothing is a miracle, or you can live as if everything is a miracle. And that's from Albert Einstein. Thank you, Happy Chatter, that's your name on here, for giving us that. That was a very happy, upbeat way to live.
That is one of my all-time favorite quotes. And I believe it's absolutely true.
Powerful, powerful, powerful. So Reverend Dale and Reverend Gail and Reverend Lori and Reverend Cheryl and Reverend William and myself, amazing show, folks. Thank you very much. A couple of short announcements. Our 10 a.m. programming tomorrow is Dr. Laura interviewing practitioner Tracy Brown. She's been on our leadership council for the international organization for quite some time, and her perspective on the global aspect of science of mind is going to be very rich. She's an accomplished author, and one of her books I use daily. She's just a rich, conscious, loving, wise being, and you're not going to miss that interview tomorrow. Fridays, as always, we have Life on Love with Reverend Charles, Saturday meditation, and Sunday, Dr. Joe has an amazing service planned, and I can't tell you why I know that. So we're going to move into our closing prayer, and I want to remind you that when you're done here, we're going to do a prayer. Then you're going to open your eyes, and whatever platform you're viewing us on, somewhere on there is going to be a button that says donate or donate today. And please consider what I'm receiving from this community and this time, and to give from that space for yourself so that you can remind yourself how grateful I am that I get to have this in my life. And I'm putting my financial good there to remind me, not just to support my church, but to remind me how amazing this stuff is for me personally. Sound great? Thank you for joining us. We move into prayer and bless this time and give thanks for it. Feeling and realizing and understanding that the presence and wisdom of love of God was right here in our time together. And that every knowledge and tidbit and essence that we need to consciously carry on throughout our day and throughout our week does so easily, effortlessly, and gracefully For in the one mind, nothing is lost. And the next step, in the next email, in the next connection, in our next task, the essence that we have experienced during this time together of Sensational 6 on Wednesday morning will rise to the surface of our conscious mind from our subconscious mind to support us in doing our perfect work, our peaceful activities, and our loving connections in this world, on this planet. I know the law has taken this truth and made it so right here and right now. I give grateful thanks for its manifestation in this life, in the life, in our life. And so we let it be, and so it is. Amen. Blessings,
And
audience.
so
Thank
it
you very much.
is.
Thank you all.